All right, so you already know what time it is, man. When it's on X Malone live direct, I'm here with my brothers from another mother. Jay the Motivator. What's poppin', brother?
What's going on? What's going on? Life is good, man.
Hey, life is good, especially when you corona free, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, zooming your dog for a little bit of convo. So much going on in the world. I just had to, call my what do you call it? My balance, my yang or yin, whichever one.
One part is a yin, the other part's a yang, right?
As long as they ain't the twins from Atlanta, we good. But yo, real quick, I know I got you on the line, got you on the Zoom, man. I just want to talk a little bit. Before we get into it, and kind of the segue, I guess. I just left Publix a couple of minutes ago. My wife was getting some chicken tenders because we was gonna make chicken tender salad, and so I'm pulling up in the front to get her. But as I'm pulling up, it's a dude that's just like mugging me. I'm talking about like real, bro. And I'm looking at him like, you know what I'm saying? Do I know you, brother? Do I know you? So I hit him with the universal.
What up?
What's your plight, brother? And he hit me with the, man, I thought you was wearing a Make America Great Again hat. So that's why I'm wearing this hat, man. What would you see if you see a Kanye or another brother wearing a Make America Great Again hat?
You said, what would I say?
Yeah, what would you say?
You probably just look at him sideways like dude was looking at you. Like, what else can you say? Like, the person convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So like, yo, if that's how you really feel, if you go that hard where you got to rock the hat, you got to rock the face mask or whatever the case is, Trump 2020, Make America Great, all that other stuff, yo, you in a sunken place. You in a sunken place right now. I don't know if there's anything I can say to you.
So what would be something to make great again? I thought instead of having the red hat, I told my wife I need to make a hat that says "Make Wall Street Black Again." How you like that?
I dig it, and I just saw something actually where they were talking about coming up with the Black Wall Street. I can't remember if it just came out or if it's about to come out in another week or so. But I just saw that, so that's very apropos as far as the time.
What you think about the whole Black Wall Street and everybody bringing more attention to it now? You know what I mean? Because a couple months ago, everybody was looking at Donald Trump like, oh, bro, you ain't made Juneteenth famous. But I tell a lot of people like, yeah, he did make Juneteenth famous for a lot of people because they had no idea about it.
So there was something I saw. There's a comedian, Jay Farrell. Very funny, does great impressions and whatnot. And so he actually came out with a show and he called it White Famous. And so he was already quote unquote black famous to a whole bunch of black people. We could always think about those celebrities that are black famous and all the hood movies or whatever the case is. You know them, your cousins know them, all that type of stuff. But if you're around some other friends, they have no idea who that person is when they get that bit part in one of those quote unquote white movies or whatnot. But he had a show called White Famous because he finally started getting into those roles with other people. Like even thinking about Kevin Hart, first movie was Soul Plane.
Yeah.
White people ain't know him off of that, but black people, all right, yeah, we saw Soul Plane, whether good, bad, or indifferent. You remember seeing Soul Plane, and then when he started getting in some of these other movies like The Wedding Ringer and all these other stuff where it may cater to a different audience, he started getting quote unquote white famous. So, kind of to your point, black people know about Juneteenth, or a lot of black people know about it. However, there was a whole nother segment of the population who never heard of it, and so bringing it out towards other people, other demographics, so it brings awareness to them. So there is some you can make an argument for that.
Yes, sir. And the reason I said that is because I heard someone, Farrakhan. I be listening to Farrakhan, and I don't really get down with the Nation of Islam Islam, but I can respect them so much for what they built. Because I be telling my mom, like, yo, regardless of if you vote Democrat or Republic, you still pretty much vote for the same people, because the major people at the top who got all the money, they putting, money on both sides of the fence, so they don't really care who wins. So I kind of break it down and explain, like, if me, you, and somebody else driving to New York, right, and I'm complaining like, man, I do not want to go to New York. That's 10 hours, 11 hours. I done made this trip before. I hate it.
Why you got to use New York, though?
I mean, New York is a long place to drive from the A, bro. And I done made that trip, and you done made that trip too.
Yes.
So if you sit here and you complaining about making that trip, but yet you get in the car, and then every time the car stops at the gas station, you be complaining, man, I don't want to go to New York, but you put 25 in the tank. Even though you saying you don't want to go to New York, you're still perpetuating the trip to New York, right?
Mm-hmm. Those actions are coinciding with making that trip to New York.
And I feel a lot of people be like, man, you got to vote. Yeah, you got to vote, but if you voting and your vote, is up in the air in limbo, is it really good for you to do? You know what I'm saying? If you have two candidates and you say, man, I really don't want to choose either one of them,
mm-hmm.
but you still come vote anyway and cast your ballot for one of them. We need something. You can't keep perpetuating the system and then expecting different results. You kind of get what I'm saying on that, Jay?
Yeah, the cycle of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
I like how you broke that down. You see what I'm saying?
So I heard somebody use the metaphor that Democrats and Republicans are different wings. It's a left wing and right wing, but it's of the same bird. So either way, it's still the same creature. It's just different sides of it. So, like how you say, you're still going in the same direction.
So that brings me back to my original point. Like, that's why I respect the Nation of Islam, because they actually have shown you that you don't have to be a part of the same system that, keeps outcasting you. You have an opportunity to create a new.
Mm-hmm.
Want to. That's if you want to. And I don't believe a lot of people really want to. They'd rather just keep sitting in the same boat and complaining more so than really getting out and really doing something about it.
So kind of what you talked about earlier with Black Wall Street over in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a lot of those wealthy Black communities in various parts of the United States. They didn't rely on other communities for what they need, for their goods and services. They were very much self-sufficient. So if you wanted a bank, there was a bank in that community. You wanted a supermarket, there was a supermarket in that community. You want life insurance, barber, whatever it is, it's all there in that community. So you didn't have to take your money and go to another community where you wasn't really wanted. Now, we don't really see that much. You don't really have a supermarket in your own community. You don't have a Black supermarket. You don't have a Black car manufacturer. You don't have a Black life insurance company. It's very hard to find a Black-owned bank. All these different things. And so when they always make the comparison where they talk about how the state that Black people were in right after slavery and compare it to now, they always make it seem like it's very similar, if not we're a little bit further behind, because there haven't really been much change. Because before, it was very much community. We all make sure we patronize each other, work with each other, group economics, all the other stuff. Now, the concept of, all right, I want to be part of what they're doing over there. When before the thought process was, don't spend your money whether you won't be hired. Don't go where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated. And so all these different things, the mindset was different in how we spent our money, how we moved, et cetera, et cetera. Now we just want to be part of the larger group, and not necessarily, we always think that if it's something that we created, if it's a business that's Black owned or whatever, it must be inferior, or the product is not as good, or the service isn't as good, or we want to hook up this, that, and the third. And it does us a disservice. Like, I actually remember when me and you first linked up and you was doing parties way back when, I said, all right, you know what, I'm gonna go out and support. And I ain't even asked you to be on the guest list or nothing like that. Like, you know what, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna pay whatever it is because I want to go support you and what it is that you're doing. And so I think if we're mindful of that and make sure that when we go out and support other Black-owned businesses, we do it in that same type of vein that we do any other type of business. Don't you want to just go to a store and just ask for a hookup off top, or like, come on, bro, just look out for your kid.
No,
I'm just like you would any other business. So.
Do you think that attests to integration?
Yeah, so there was two major opposite philosophies at that prevalent time back in the 60s. You have Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and they always seemed to be, or they were always pitted at odds against one another.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So, what's that?
As they always do.
Yeah. So it's like with Martin Luther King, they had him at the forefront of, all right, integration. Let's make sure that, we're all in this together and, we're all doing the same thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they always had Malcolm X as, separation and whatnot. And so integration is the way that it seems like America has moved. However, with that, we lost some of the self-sufficiency that we had during that time period. And so we've done a disservice to ourselves because we can't make our own food. We can't fix our own plumbing or build our own house or do our own electricity. Like all these things that we were able to do prior to where we can survive on our own, we can't now. And so we're reliant on other people just to survive. And that does a disservice to all of us. So,
and you are absolutely right. As you know, like you be seeing some of my posts. That's why I'm really keying in on the whole Willie Lynch situation, because I believe if we really go back and we study the words and the mindset that was placed not on just regular human beings. These were like the business owners of the South and the West Indies and the islands. These are the business owners. These are, you know what I'm saying, your George Washington. These are
corporations.
These are major corporations, bro. And when he set fire to Virginia, giving that speech on that day, I really believe it changed the whole dynamic of everything, life in general, because the things that he was saying in the speeches was so diabolical. It still holds weight to this day, and he said it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about creating differences in a human being?
What do you mean?
Okay, so like for example, in the Willie Lynch letters, okay, he said, I have a list of differences. At the top of my list is age, but not because it's of its significance, but only because it starts with an A. So that kind of right there shows you how someone can create a difference, an indifference between a human being, and they can do it so subtly just because it starts with an A.
Mm-hmm.
But you're playing with human lives here. You know what I mean?
Talk about it. So I'm gonna turn the young against the old and the old against the young. And like how you said, the word diabolical, because it shouldn't be young versus old or old versus young. Imagine if they came together, the things that they can accomplish. Because the older folks, they should have wisdom, they should have better ways to do things. The young people have the strength, energy, and whatnot to accomplish those things. And so working together in concert, nothing's impossible. When they talk about the male against the female, light skin versus dark skin, and that's a joke that we have in our community now. So, oh, you acting real light skin, or you got dark skin tendencies and all that. And so it creates a divide and separation. Instead of us working together, we each try to outdo each other, and we each want to outshine somebody else. But the strength is working together in unison.
Absolutely. So that's why I asked that question. How do you creating differences in a human being? You know what I mean? How does that play out? How do you feel about that? How do you think the situation would play out 300 years later if you create small differences in a human being, in a race of people? You know what I mean? And they said, and he said in the book, hey, have your wife use it. Mm-hmm. Have your children use these tactics. Have your overseers use these tactics. Like, that creates a bonfire of emotional differences, physical differences. Like we said, if you're talking about dark versus light, there's so many mind-blowing things that really happen. And back in the day, wasn't nobody talking about no PTSD then. Mm-hmm. But if you look at really the words that was said in this book, every Black person has PTSD. Mm-hmm. But they don't bring mention to that, and they don't talk about that. And I really believe if you really start looking, if we just read those short letters, man, you will really see why we're in the state that we're in. That's why I'd be like, when people are like, oh, shoot, 45 killings in Chicago, these Black folk can't just stop killing each other. I'm like, yeah, we can't stop killing each other. Look what happened. No other race had that done to them.
So the thing that's always troubling is that a lot of times people just try and talk about the symptoms that are shown. They don't necessarily want to get to the root of it. And that's the thing that's troubling. And a lot of times you're able to fool people by just focusing on the symptom. But again, if you never get to the root cause, you're never going to actually solve the problem. And for a lot of people, that's fine, because most problems didn't take 2 years or 4 years to be created. And so it's going to take longer than that time to get them solved. And so nobody wants to be the unpopular person in office to enact these certain things and do what's necessary to get it fixed. So, hey, if you're sick, all right, you can't go outside. You got to stay in the house. But it's summer and we're going on a field trip and this, that, and the third. Who wants to be the parent saying, nah, you can't go. You got to be inside the house. You can't go outside with your friend. Most people, they don't want to be that. They don't want to be the bad guy. So they, all right, go ahead, just go out. And they're not worried about the consequences later on, what's going to happen when they come back in the house, or what's going to happen a week from now, because they know what, I'm not going to be around anyway. I'm going to be out of office, or it's going to be passed down to the next person, whatever the case is. And so just being mindful of not trying to just treat the symptom, but the root cause, and having some long-term vision and being okay with being the quote unquote bad guy. Because again, it didn't take overnight to get into that situation. So it's going to take longer to get out of that situation.
Absolutely. That's what brings me to my next point. What do you think about reparations? I know like we talked about, being in the Black community, it's been almost a joke forever. Saying like, well, when I get my reparations, I'm gonna ball out. And then you had the famous Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
That brought it right back up. You know what I'm saying? But for real, there are a lot of people who are really pushing for the reparations of Black people. And I really think that they're in due. They do. It's time. It's time. Like, everybody else got paid out. You know what I'm saying? Shoot, the Japanese Americans, they got paid out. They got $20,000 each person, that was locked up. Yep. And they cashed them out. Mm-hmm. And everybody sees these little $1,200 checks that are going out. You got the bread. There's no more. You're trying to already go to a one world money system. That's why you see ain't no change, and you got to pay with exact change, or you got to pay with your debit or credit card, because that's what's coming up next, that one world dollar, right? So before you do all that, the same people who have PTSD from Mr. Lynch, which is where the name comes from, lynching. All black people got PTSD. We deserve to get paid for the people who didn't get paid a long time ago.
So my thought is this, and it's very simple. What they talked about once they, quote unquote, freed the slaves was giving them 40 acres and a mule.
A lot.
So, well, some of them actually did get it before they rescinded that and went back on it and whatnot. However, 40 acres and a mule.
That would change the dynamic of the nation.
Right. So, because again, you have certain resources that are finite and certain resources that they can just create. And so with economics, you have supply and demand. The more rare something is, the more valuable it is. So you can create more money, which is evident with what's going on now. So the intrinsic value of money fluctuates with what people decide that it's worth. However, the thing that's not being created more is land. There's no more land that's being created. So 40 acres and a mule. Now the thing is, and kind of what we talked about earlier with being self-sufficient, if you knew what to do with that, you're good. If you know how to farm or raise cattle, whatever it is that you want to do, you're good. I got my land. I can take care of my family. I can live off the land. I have these resources here that I can do something with these resources to take care of myself. I'm good. However, a lot of us have gotten so far away from that, we don't know the first thing about planting or harvesting. We don't know anything about that. So that land, a lot of times for most people, is not necessarily going to do any good for anybody because it's a raw material that they don't know how to cultivate to make it actually be something worth of value, which is the issue that we get into. So in my mind,
but I be seeing a lot of people that, you know what I mean? Like one of my white homeboys hit me up the other day, right? And was like, man, I know it's quarantine, but you and your wife and your kids got to come, swim at my pool. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? He sent me pics. I'm talking about he got the big old yard, bro. You know what I'm saying? Full backyard, all of that. I'm like, dang, bro, when you move over there? He's like, man, we just moved. My granddad gave it to my mom, and my mom sold it to me. I just generational wealth. Yep. And so if you think about that going back, that starts to be the effect that has. So the first person in my family who owned a house was my mom. Her dad didn't own one. His dad, I don't even think my mom knew his dad, so on and so forth. Same thing on my dad's side. And so it took how many generations before the first one was able to own a house? And if you look and do a comparison with some of our white counterparts, it's not like that. Their grandparents, so on and so forth, there was houses in their family for 4 or 5 generations or whatnot. They can take money to give them to go to college. They can take money to give them a nice son when they get married. They can take money to give them a down payment for a house for themselves and all these different things. So it's like playing Monopoly. You're going to start off with the $1,500 or you're going to start off with zero. It's a lot easier when you started off with that $1,500 to win and make some moves in the game as opposed to starting off zero. You know, that one trip around the board, they got money to buy whatever it is that they want. You starting off at zero, you got to get all the way around. Hope you get a little income tax or something like that coming out of pocket. That $200, you got to get right back. You're gonna have to make a couple of trips around there to save something to buy some property. And so there's a difference with that, and it shows how important land is. However, it's not just the resource itself, but knowing how to do something with it, and even more so. Boom. So you nice with Photoshop. So that's the resource. You got So you got Photoshop. So you nice with it. Boom. You can make magic with that. You can just create logos and do all types of stuff. Cool. Somebody else, you put Photoshop in my hand, you ain't getting magic with that. And so the resource is the same. Yeah.
In both situations, you have the land. In both situations, you have Photoshop. However, because one person knows how to cultivate and utilize that resource effectively, they can actually do something with it and make the most of it. Because the other person lacks that know-how, they're not going to get anything from it. And so we want this land. However, we need to make sure that we put ourselves in a position where we can actually do something with that land and take that raw resource to something that's actually we're going to be able to cultivate and make the best of.
Yeah, and you absolutely right. But like you talk about the lineage, can you see how it plays an effect? Like, come on, 400 years is one hell of a resume. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get that on Career Builders, bro. So if you have 400 years of experience of whatever it is, I'm talking about building a White House, building creeks, building bridges, building dams, building horse and carriages, cutting the grass, detailing cars. You did it all.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine if the 40 acres and a mule would have been presented like stated? The same people you talking about, you know, having skills. We should have been at the forefront of every job, every skill, everything. But why didn't that happen? Because like what Kanye said, yo, Harriet Tubman didn't really free the slaves. She just had them go work for some other white people.
See, now you starting to look like you wearing that MAGA hat.
But is that not true, bro? Is that not true?
That she didn't free them, that she had them work for other white people?
Yeah, because it was, hey, even though you was escaping to the north, brother, when you got up there to good old north, you were not allowed to start your own business. I mean, some did, but in the masses of how we really should have been entrepreneurs then, imagine where we would be now.
And that's why a lot of the neighborhoods that we talked about, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Seneca Village, those different hubs for Black wealth and Black people doing well-to-do, that's why a lot of those were destroyed. Because you had, and even in the movie Rosewood, they were talking about how one of the characters had a piano in his house. And the white guy was saying, I don't even have a piano in my house. And this N-word got a piano in his. And so they see that and they're not happy. They're like, wait, time out. Your grandfather was a slave. Why you got a piano in your? No, that's not. And so if you don't want them to ascend to a certain area, you got to destroy it. And then you got to make sure that you re-educate them a certain way. So you don't want them to learn the history that enlightens them, that strengthens them, that inspires them. You only want them to learn a certain segment of history that's going to keep them docile and under control. And even if you look, there's a history of that. And so with Native Americans, they would take them out of their culture and send them to certain schools so they can learn the quote unquote white man's education, because they wanted them divorced from that culture to make them something else and get further away from that, to quote unquote civilize them. So
I'm telling you, Willie Lynch, I look at the words and I see exactly what he said, and I start to question everything that we're going through now and have gone through in history. And that book set it on fire.
So there's a song. So Bob Marley had a song called Redemption Song. It's a phenomenal song. And there's this line. It says, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind." And so it even goes more so with what it says in the word. It talks about the truth will make you free. Not set you free, but make you free. There's a difference. And so it talks about, and even kind of what you was alluding to with Harriet Tubman, helping people free themselves physically. That's the first part. However, we need to free our minds as well, because now we're physically free. We don't necessarily have the same shackles to be physically bonded. However, our mentality a lot of times is enslaved. And so with that, you don't need shackles on somebody's physical part. if their mind is enslaved. They're only going to go as far as they believe they can because you set certain boundaries for them. So they have that glass ceiling. So you don't have to limit them. They're going to limit themselves. And he even talked about that, where it talks about what the mother would do and how she would treat the male child as opposed to the female child and whatnot. And it just replicates. So it's less work for you to do because they're going to teach themselves and hold themselves down and whatnot. And so just being mindful of not just the physical, but making sure we free our minds too.
Yeah, man, it is definitely time for that. That's why I asked that, or I posed that question to you earlier, as far as it don't matter if you vote Democrat or Republican, you still perpetuating the same system. And the same system was created to not let you up, to not give you a fair chance, to put you in a mental slave situation after they quote unquote freed you physically. I appreciate your time, bro. This has been a great conversation. We need to do this again ASAP.
Yes, sir.
Shoot, tell them where to follow you at right quick.
On Instagram, Jay the Motivator. Facebook, Jay the Motivator. YouTube, Jay the Motivator. JayTheMotivator.com.
You better get that. You better get that.
Make it real easy.
Hey man, that's perfect branding, bro. That's perfect branding. You can follow me, nxvtrust.com. nxvtrust.com is the web. You know, we get into it. Hey, bro, I love you. It's been an honor talking to you. Let's talk again.
Yes, sir. Be blessed.